What's going on, everyone? Lullet here. Recently, Ryan Pineda came out with this video on you need these three credit cards in 2020. And he talks about the three cards he recommends, three cards he uses. And today, what I want to do is talk about those six cards in total and also talk about three cards I personally recommend as well. If you're new to the channel, welcome. We talk about stocks, credit, crypto, and personal finance in general here on the channel. But with that, let's get straight into it. I'll see you on the other side. I'm still here on the same side, but the point is, let's start off with some background about Ryan Pineda and why we're even mentioning him in this video, and then we'll get into the nitty gritty. So basically, Ryan Pineda, he's TikTok famous, and from there, he's become semi-YouTube famous as well, because in the last few months, at the time of this recording, he's standing at 40,000 subscribers. And I remember when he was literally in the single digits in terms of the thousands. And so last I checked, he has around 300K followers on TikTok. And so what he talks about is money, real estate, and entrepreneurship on his channel. And he has his courses, he has his mentorship program, and overall he goes and sees different type of guru experiences, whether that's conventions, more of the events themselves, from networking to meeting more to learning more, etc., etc. And so he's big on self-development, learning, education, and basically how to succeed as an entrepreneur. And so why I have this feeling of being an aficionado of Ryan Pineda is because he also has a background in baseball. And I have a background in beatboxing. Like, yeah, so the point is, with that baseball background, but him dealing with money, real estate, entrepreneurship, and then myself having a background in beatbox, but then super interested in the personal finance realm right here on YouTube especially, I think that it was pretty cool to see that juxtaposition of the both, but see where his discipline and what he learned from baseball also ties into his business side of things. And so that's why I want to talk about him today, and loving credit cards on my side. He talked about them, so now here we are to discuss. Ryan Pineda is super famous for financing one of his deals purely on credit. And so from his credit line, literally taking cash advance and maxing out all his lines of credit to close on a deal. And so for him, he uses credit in that way to more finance deals slash flipping deals and other kind of business activities he does in the world of real estate. And for some that works, and for some, of course, it sounds like, hey, I would never do that. And so he has success with it, and he's had success, but that same success, the adage goes like, you only hear about the success stories. And so I'm not saying he was lucky or not, but more out of respect saying that it worked for him, but then he's gone on. And just through his background and discipline and everything, he has that grit, in my opinion, to keep on going from a business perspective to achieve whatever that is he wants. And so moving on to now the credit cards specifically that he talks about in the three credit cards you need in 2020. He talks about three credit cards that he recommends, and his criteria is based around two factors. They are cashback as well as the ability to balance transfer. And so he talks about how balance transfers are not limited to moving debt on one card to another, but rather the ability to take out cash from the credit line and deposit straight into the checking account so you can use it for XYZ. And so the three credit cards he mentioned are Citi Double Cash, the Citi Diamond Preferred, as well as the Chase Freedom Unlimited. And so off the bat, from a balance transfer perspective, you have 18 months on the Citi Double Cash as well as the Citi Diamond Preferred, and 15 months on the Chase Freedom Unlimited. And I feel like I've seen 21 months on the Citi Diamond Preferred maybe a year or 2 years ago, but just putting it out there in general that these lengths of period, they do change. And so it's 0% APR, but on intro purchases for X amount of time. But there's a small caveat where the Citi Double Cash, in terms of balance transfer, it's 0% fee for 18 months to transfer X amount of money. But on the Citi Diamond Preferred, you get that same 18 months, but there is a fixed fee of 3%. And so it's on 0% to transfer, and depending on the deal, it could be more than worth it, but just a small difference between the both. But you do get more cash back on the Citi Double Cash, while no real cash back on the Citi Diamond Preferred when you compared it to. And a quick disclaimer. On the Citi Double Cash, you get 2% cash back, but it's 1% when you swipe and 1% as you pay off your statement, aka in full and on time every single month. And so if you don't, you're forfeiting your rewards in terms of paying on time, but in terms of paying in full, if you don't pay in full, then you're not getting that full second 1% to make the total 2%. Coming to the Freedom Unlimited, you got 1.5% cash back, which isn't 2%, but also this is a side note, but basically depending on the Chase ecosystem and what cards you have, you can get more than just cash back at 1.5. You can get 1.5 times points, and Chase's points are called ultimate reward points, and those points can be valued even more if you use it for travel or other items depending on what you're trying to redeem for, but also depends coming back to what Chase cards you have. And so his three choices, they're not bad at all. Actually, in fact, I agree with them being great cards. But one disclaimer is that he does talk about extracting cash from his credit line to be used on XYZ. But there's a thing where you cannot balance transfer within usually the same bank. And so an example is, for example, if you have $10,000 on the Citi Double Cash in terms of debt, and you're trying to balance transfer that, aka transfer that debt to a different card, you can do that, but you cannot do it to another Citi card. And that works for Chase to Chase, PNC to PNC, whichever it is, because internally, just if you think about it, it's kind of like if I'm the bank and you borrowed some amount from me, this $10,000, I'm basically saying like, okay, you took 10,000 from me and now you want to get 10,000 more on a different card to put that same 10,000 onto there, but technically and realistically, if you do the math, I'm giving you double the limit, assuming that it's 10,000 limit on the Citi Double Cash and then 10K on the Cit Diamond Preferred. And so if you look at that example, it makes sense that basically you're not able to do it more legitimately from a legal perspective, but also just logically, it's extending more than needed per se because you're just pushing off more debt. And from a mathematical perspective, it also makes sense because if you're trying to collect interest, you're basically giving an okay to extend someone's debt period, which is not in the best interest from a financial perspective on the bank side. Some honorable mentions though on his list of options, I would say to discover it, easy approvals, you get 14 months of 0% APR. You got the HSBC, I think it's called a Gold MasterCard, where you have 12 months of 0% APR when I had it back in the day, and it could be 12, it could be 15 months. And finally, the Wells Fargo Platinum Card, which you got 0% for 15 months, and it's super straightforward. It just depends on what you prefer and what you want. But coming back to the three options, the Citi Double Cash, even if you do a balance transfer, put some debt on there, and once it's paid off, you have a strong card in terms of cashback earning capability, in terms of the overall industry in perspective of 2%. You get 2% a lot of places nowadays. You got it at Synchrony, you got it at Fidelity, you got it at Citi Double Cash, you have it with the PayPal MasterCard. But the point is, in terms of bank, cloud kind of reasonability, their customer service may not be the best on Citi's side, but at least the card, it's super famous for what it's used for. And if you look at the Cit Diamond Preferred as well as the Chase Freedom Unlimited, the Chase Freedom Unlimited is more important, I would say, to break into the Chase ecosystem, because once you're in, you're able to be getting pretty much anything else you want as long as you have a good record. But getting in is the hardest part, and Ryan talks about it, how we've shared a funny story that, he could never get approved and now he just stopped, applying because it's like, whatever, dude, like life goes on, and even myself, I keep not getting approved for the Chase Hyatt credit card, and that's been I'm trying to control my emotion here, but that's been on my mind as well. So anyways, yeah. Moving on to the three cards Ryan Pineda talks about that he has currently. It's the Fidelity Rewards credit card, which gets you 2% pretty much on everything in terms of cash back. Second, you got the Southwest Rapid Rewards business credit card. And so he talks about having Companion Pass with it, and that requires 125,000 miles, either getting it through flying with them or you would get it through spending on the credit card. And he talks about having X amount of millions of expense in terms of business. And so it being a business card and him getting Companion Pass, it's not that hard to hit it based on the situation. And so it is a lot of money to spend on a credit card, but if it makes sense for him, then it makes sense for anybody, really. And third on the list, you got the Amex BCE, aka the Amex Blue Cash Everyday Card. And so he talks about, like, it gives you some grocery spend, etc., like this, and he doesn't really value it, but he talks about having a huge limit with Amex over the years, and that's the same thing with the Fidelity card for having it for 10 years. He basically has some established history as well as limit with them, and so out of convenience, it's just one of those things where he's not worried about the cashback when you spend, but just having that repertoire with the bank to get more credit as needed for his business ventures. So some debrief time, and right before I get into it, I do remember that in the video he talks about the Chase Freedom Unlimited having 5% on groceries that he doesn't value because he doesn't spend on groceries much, but I did want to say that 5% is there for the first year up to $12,000 in spend, and so it's not 5% forever on a no annual fee card. And he talks about the $200 bonus when you spend $500, and he talks about if you're a lower spender, then it's great to get that amount of money for spending 500 that you would have anyways. And so I think it's great to get 40% return on your money, of course. And so now let me get into what 3 cards I think are the ones that you need in 2020. And so the 3 cards I think that everyone needs in 2020, it just depends. It's not about the pandemic. It's not about the groceries. It's not about the Rona, etc. But it all comes down to finance being personal finance. And for him, he values cash back as well as balance transfers. And at least Ryan Pineda knows this, because I remember in the beginning, everyone, they can talk about credit and what it means and what cards you want, but it all depends on the actual situation of where is your spending going. If it's a card that gives you category spend, or if it's a card that gives you X amount of bonus points on some specific category, but if you don't spend on it, then it makes sense that that wouldn't be the case. And so the 3 cards that are my favorite for my spending and what I value is travel, aka not just cash back, but really points, because points can have outsized value in terms of redeeming it, not just for business class and first class, but it's also a hedge instead of using cash up front or cash spontaneously or intermittently for huge expenses. If there's, hotels to be booked, flights to be booked, it can be X amount of money that's gone, in a year when I think it month to month to month. And so points is kind of like this magic kind of fund almost that's in the background, but I don't see cash going out. And points is what I value for using for expenses that are not just leisure, but more importantly, that I would do anyways and pay cash for otherwise. And so coming to the 3 cards, you got the Amex Blue Business Plus card. It is a business card where you get 2 times membership reward points on anything, regardless of category. And so those 2 times points valued at an average of 2 cents per point for each point is basically saying for me I'm getting 4% in terms of cash value, because I do redeem for flights primarily, if not all the time, pretty much 99% of the time. And so second, you got the Chase Sapphire Reserve, and third, you have the Amex Gold card. And so the Amex Gold card used to be called the Amex Premier Rewards Gold card, but after the name change and the design, it's the Amex Gold card and the Chase Sapphire Reserve. And so the Chase Sapphire Reserve, super famous on the market, 3x on travel and dining. The Amex Gold card, you got 4x on grocery as well as dining. And so I use my Amex for groceries, but for dining, I use a mix of the both, depends on the situation. And I talk about it in my What's in My Wallet video this month for October 2020. But the point is, I like to diversify the spend on both of them just so I get a diversity of points. And so it gives me that capability to redeem accordingly. And since I use points for travel slash miles in general, there's some certain transfer partners where it's a part of Amex's network and Chase's ecosystem. And so just seeing the both, it's, for me, I like that I have the optionality versus being locked into a system. For example, like Ryan Pineda's Southwest Rapid Rewards business card, where he's based out of, it may make sense for him, but for me, I do travel different places around the world, and so I do need flexibility. And Southwest is primarily domestic, and it just doesn't work for me personally. And so with that, it also just comes back to personal preference, personal choice, etc., etc. All right, y'all, this is the end. Thank you so much for coming to the end. I really appreciate it. Like, share, subscribe, you know how it is. But it's cue the outro time, and just really quick short story here, 5 seconds. I nicked myself when I was trying to shave for this video, and it's the ending. I don't know who's watching this, so just putting it out there. But I'll do the outro without doing any type of sounds coming from my nose, but otherwise. So hope you enjoy it. Peace. See you soon. Love you all. Peace.